Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a great week. My surface is finally dry, and once it was completely dry, I actually also applied a coat of gesso over the entire surface because I wanted to make sure that all of the areas that I had created, the different textures that I had created, including this hot glue, were paintable. It might be paintable on its own, but I think the gesso will just give the surface of the entire canvas a little bit more tooth, and that will help the different colors that I'm going to put on the painting adhere better. So now that that's done, I'm going to use a variety of different inks to start creating some background color for my painting. And as I'm doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dilute these inks with some water and before I apply it to the surface. So that way it'll be more like a wash and not a very pigmented color on top of the surface. This is for the background only. It's not going to be the final thing that you see, but I want the wash to also seep into all the little nooks and crannies that you can see on the surface of the canvas. What I'm trying to do here is make sure that the water, the surface is wet so that the color will travel more easily into all the different crevices in the texture that I created. And I'm going to be adding this blue. Usually I just do one particular shade and I cover the whole canvas with it, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to try putting different inks on. And so I'm going to start with this lighter color and then I'll build up to some of the darker colors once this is dry. I would say that this is wet enough, so now I'm going to start in with my brush and start covering the canvas. The base layer of color is now complete. I know it looks a little bit funny at this point, but the most important point of putting this layer of color was to make the areas, the deep areas of texture, darker. There's going to be a lot more color being added to this painting, and most of this is not going to show, but some of it will, and I want it to really pop when it does. So that's one of the reasons we created this base, or I created this base. And now I'm going to move forward to doing something which may seem a little counterintuitive, but I'm going to cover it, not completely. I'm going to really just try to do some dry brushing over the surface to not cover all of that color that I just put on there. But I am going to cover it with bronze paint. And it's going to look a whole lot different. And then this will also be covered with more color once I'm done. But this is all part of my process. As I mentioned during this part of the process, I'm going to be doing some dry brushing. So I'm not going to add thick layers of paint. I'm going to actually wipe it off, some of it off, or to make my brush drier. And I'm just going to start covering the canvas as such. I'll probably speed up this process so that you don't have to watch the whole thing, because it's, pretty straightforward. But doing this is going to help bring out some of those textures and make everything pop a little bit more. again, this isn't the final layer of color, so we're just finely covering the surface. Seems like no matter what kind of painting I do, there's always a time in the process where I start to have some doubts, and of course, you know, that's because the painting is not even close to being finished and it's not looking anything like what I want it to look like in the end. But it's kind of daunting when you're going through these parts of the painting where you're not so sure that you're on the right track. The key, as I've mentioned in some of my videos, especially some of my portrait painting videos, is to just keep with it. To keep adding and to not, you know, let the doubt stop you from moving forward, and just keep at it. Because eventually it is all going to come together and it will all make sense. Even if it doesn't seem to make much sense when you're going through that period of doubt. In this part of the process, I'm going to add a layer of interference colors on the entire surface of the painting. As I'm progressing, I'm slowly but surely starting to add more layers of color. Here I'm going to start working with a palette knife to add some color, and this is going to make it so the application is just really covering the raised edges of the painting. After adding this first layer of light blue to the sky, I use more white paint to mix a lighter blue so that I can start adding to the surface of my clouds. Here I'm using a palette knife to add some dark blue to my ocean. And once I'm done with that, I use my palette knife again to start adding some color to the grass area. I was feeling as though the sky in my painting needed a little bit more of a pop of color, so I started to add a darker blue to this area. And I've decided to brighten up the grass as well. Here I'm dry brushing some interference blue over my sky to give it a more even appearance. And manganese blue will help even out the ocean. My lighthouse needs a bigger pop of color, so I'll do this by adding some gold to the raised areas around the surface of the lighthouse. Using my palette knife, I apply a thicker layer of titanium white to make my clouds pop out more. And for finishing touches, I use a fine tip brush to add some little swooshes. I don't really know what to call them, but of different colors of green, gold, some light yellows, just to give the grass area a little bit more dimension and to also make it more eye-catching, I guess. With these final details added, I'm ready to say that my painting is finished. I want to thank you again for joining me on this journey. It was a really fun project to create. I hope it inspires you to pick up your brushes and to get creating as well. Have a wonderful week and happy creating!